There are currently a lot of shotguns inside of Destiny 2. And when I say a lot, I mean when I was putting together this tier list, I forgot some of these even existed. One, because either they are just so bad, or two, I mean, like I just said, there's just so many that it's really hard to keep track of nowadays. Either way though, it has been a very long time since I've done a tier list on this channel, and I thought, why not change that up a little bit today and rank every single shotgun in the game. Now, before we even rank a single shotgun, I want to go over some criteria for how I am ranking these things. For one, the frame of the gun matters the absolute most. We all know, as of right now, slugs and precision frame shotguns are just your best options in the game. There are some outliers from other archetypes, you know, like aggressives and whatnot, that can compete at the highest level, but they aren't really in that same tier. On top of the archetype though, what matters just as much, maybe even more, is the perks. If a gun has horrible perks, I can't put it that high. Even if it has great stats, I mean, it's tough luck for the gun. It is tough luck. You need good stats, you need good perks, you need all of it. And finally, I do also want to say that I will be accounting for some niche playstyles. Think like Arc Elemental Capacitor. If that's something you use, I'm going to try to give those shotguns the benefit of the doubt for that specific subclass and the people who use it. But if it's something where you got to get a melee, throw a grenade, pop your super, do a backflip, hit an electro slide, I'm not really going to factor that into the tier list. Even if that combo is good for you, nobody is spending all their time doing all that random shit before they can just use their gun. Without further ado though, let's get started with the D tier, where the first shotgun we have is the Decide, or the Deicide. I still don't know how to say this gun to this day. All I know is you should be deciding not to use it. This thing is absolute butt cheeks. It's not going to do much for you. The frame is very bad. Perks aren't good. There is literally nothing going for this gun whatsoever, unless you just want to troll around a little bit. The Perfect Paradox is another gun that's in that same boat. Very bad. I mean, rapid fire shotguns are just awful. There's not really any redeeming qualities. Even if they get good perks, I can't put them very high. This thing could have opening shot, threat detector. It would not matter because of how bad the frame is, if I'm being honest. Well, actually, I take that back. There's a couple exceptions later in the list, but they really have a lot of things going for them. This thing doesn't. Ikelos SG also has nothing going for it. The gun is really just a PvE weapon. Same with Wishbringer, another very bad weapon for PvP. One Small Step, also in the same boat. If you notice, I am kind of breezing through a lot of these really bad ones because there's not much to talk about. I will go a little bit more in depth on better shotguns, in a little bit. Next up, we have the Basso Ostinato. This thing is also terrible, and it's really hard to say. So, I mean, you have double ass right there. Bad gun, hard to say the name. Why would you use it? And finally, this one might shock some people, but we have the Comedian, an aggressive frame all the way in D tier. This thing sucks. I don't care what anybody says. The perk pool is pitiful. There is not a single good perk on this gun in the left or the right column, other than maybe Ensemble, which is like very situational. Like, this gun is terrible. For an adept weapon, this is one of the most disappointing things we've ever seen. Adept mods can't save it. The stats aren't even that good. This thing is piss. If I catch you using the Comedian, you're not gonna be the one laughing. I'ma be laughing at you. That shit is ass. Moving on to the C tier though, here's where we get some shotguns that still aren't very good, but you could actually get a few kills with these things. They're not gonna be horrible, and if you know how to use a shotgun decently, they'll still be okay. First one we have is Reckless Endangerment. This was the ritual weapon. I think, I was going to say not that long ago, but I think it's been a minute now. It's just your average lightweight shotgun. Decent perks, decent stats. It's a lightweight shotgun. I can't really put it that high. Not horrible, but not great either. Toil and Trouble also finds its way down here in the C tier because, unfortunately, it does have slide shot and threat detector on an aggressive frame, which sounds like it'd be pretty good, but they're in the same slot. So you can't really do much there. And then the right perk slot, you have like Snapshot, but I mean, if you use like threat detector Snapshot, then you have no range on your gun. And if you use, slide shot Snapshot, then you have no handling on your gun. So either way, it's kind of a lose-lose on Toil, and it's just not that great of a gun. Last Man Standing is also down here, even though it has opening shot in the left column, which is very interesting because you can get opening shot plus a damage perk. But I mean, let's be real. Even if you go over like opening shot swash, let's say you get a melee kill. Yes, you have like one super bullet that can absolutely map the shit out of people. but how often is that really happening? And it doesn't really have the handling to compete either. So even though it has these like niche playstyles, I can't really put it that high. The 7 Seraph Shotty is also down here, which pains me to say because this used to be one of the best shotguns in the game. It feels amazing. It's kind of butt, man. You don't have opening shot on here. You don't really have anything to boost the range besides slide shot. And even on top of that, it's still just a lightweight shotty, which unfortunately is not very good. Xenoclast is also down here for the exact same reason. I mean, decent perks, just a lightweight shotgun. Not very good. I guess you can also say the same for the Retro Futurist. I really used to like this gun, but I'm starting to sound like a broken record with all these lightweights, but unfortunately it's just true. If they don't have like the most juiced perk combination possible, they can't break B tier. They really just can't. Speaking of bad frames though, we do actually have 2 rapid fires in the C tier, that being the Dead Weight and the Until Its Return. I'm going to talk about both these at the same time because they're basically in the C tier for the same reason. They both roll with Harmony. Even though they're rapid fires, which are absolutely horrible, they have decent stats and they roll with Harmony. With Harmony active, you are doing about the same damage, I think a little bit more actually than a precision frame. So if you play with your primary, you get that perk active. I mean, rapid fire shotguns actually do have a very good pellet spread. They usually just have very bad stats. Am I saying this gun is good by any means? No, but if you were to use a rapid fire frame for whatever reason, Harmony can definitely build these 2 out, but I still wouldn't recommend it either way. And finally, coming in at the last spot in C tier, we have the Deadpan Delivery. This thing was really interesting when it came out because you had like Elemental and you had Barrel Constrictor on an aggressive frame shotgun. But at this point, there's just better elemental aggros in the game, so this thing really just isn't needed. And on top of that, Barrel Constrictor is pretty situational. I'm not going to say it's a bad perk, but compared to like opening shot, slide shots, I mean, even the new closing time, it's pretty damn bad and useless. Also, the thing has a whopping 19 base range, so good luck with that. With that being said though, it is finally time to move up to the B tier, where we finally start to see some genuinely usable shotguns, starting with the Wastelander. The Wastelander was at one point in time the best shotgun in the game. It really isn't anymore because all of, the pellet changes we've had and this and that. But the gun still has enhanced slide shot, enhanced opening, really good handling. The origin trait also gives you even more handling. So it's tough to compete with a shotgun that has, 100 range, 100 handling a lot of the time. It's got to be B tier. I wish I could put it higher, but unfortunately, lightweight frames, they kind of cap out at B tier. There's not going to be anything higher than this. We do have a few more lightweights in this tier though, one of which being the Swordbreaker. Swordbreaker and Wastelander are very, very similar guns on paper. And I think it honestly just comes down to preference, but either way, they're still both coming down to the B tier. Then we have Reeswalker as well. Reeswalker, I mean, once again, it was one of those shotguns that back in the day was really, really good. It's not really the same thing anymore, but still belongs in B tier. Without Remorse, also another lightweight that belongs in B tier. This thing has some really good rolls. Honestly, if it was up to me, I wish lightweights were still meta. I wish they were, bro, because they were so fun to use. But either way, those guns, they can't be anything higher than B tier, which really pains me to say. Moving on from those lightweights, though, we do have a few aggressive frames in here. The first one being the Ragnhild. Ragnhild is one I wish I could put higher as well. The gun just doesn't really have any good range perks, which really sucks because it has decent base stats. It has Elemental Capacitor, Perpetual Motion. There are some really good, handling perks on this gun. Just, they really, really fumbled the bag when it comes to not having slide shot or opening shots. That could have made this gun, A tier. I'm not going to say S tier because getting into S tier as an aggressive frame right now is really, really difficult, but definitely could have been A tier if it had slightly better perks. Hand in Hand is also down here for a similar reason. I mean, it does have Elemental with Fragile, so it does have a range perk, but the base stats are a little bit worse than the Ragnhild, and the Hand in Hand is not enhanceable, so it's definitely just not as good as something like the Ragnhild. And even then, there are some better elemental aggressives in the game right now, so I would have a very tough time bumping this thing up to A tier. Now finally, we do have one more weapon in the B tier, which might blow your mind, but it is a slug shotgun, which seems crazy because slugs are really good right now. But the problem is, the No Reprieve, which is the slug we're talking about, has no good perks. This thing literally has no good perks outside of maybe Harmony, but Harmony on a slug doesn't really do anything. Like, you're not one-tapping to the body. I mean, maybe I guess it gives you slightly more headshot range, but even then, it's just worse than opening shot in every way on a slug. And like left column, you don't have moving target. You don't have, you have surplus. I don't know, man. It's very tough for me to say that this thing is better than B tier when even though it's a slug, it has no good perks whatsoever. Moving on to A tier, here's where we are going to have a lot of your very good aggressive frame shotguns, starting off with the Imperial Decree. If it was up to me, maybe this thing would be S tier. I think it feels very, very good, especially with the ornament, but I'm not going to sit here and be delusional. I know it's just not as good as a lot of the top tier precision frames, but you still have really good perks like threat detector, opening shots, and I mean, I'm sure there's more than that, but I mean, that's pretty much the only role the only role that's really worth using, but either way, still a really, really good gun. Found Verdict is another one that belongs in the A tier, even though it does have, an adept version. It just doesn't really matter that much. I can't put it in S tier because it's still an aggro frame, but you do have threat detector, opening shot, just like the Imperial Decree, which is very, very strong. We do also have the Astral Horizon in A tier, which I kind of debated bumping this down to B because it is worse than Imperial Decree, but I couldn't really bump it down because it does at least have Elemental Capacitor and Slide Shot. So if you were to use this thing on Arc, it would be really, really good for that purpose. So still an A tier shotgun. Mindbender is another one that belongs in this A tier as well because you do have things like Fragile Focus and Threat Detector. If you kept that role before, all of us and their mom deleted it because Fragile wasn't good back in the day, so people were deleting it for vault space, and then Bungie was like, yo, we're gonna buff it, and by that time, the damage was done. Everybody deleted their I guess, god rolls, which they weren't good at the time, Mindbenders with Fragile and whatnot. It was a whole fiasco. It really sucked, but either way, the gun, it is good now. It just sucks that a lot of us probably deleted a 5 out of 5. Trust me, I know we've had a lot of aggressive frames in this tier already, but there is one more just to round it out, which is the Sudden Death, either the old version or the new version. I don't really know if there's much of a difference other than one's Void and one's Arc, but they do have Elemental and Opening Shot on an aggressive frame, so if you want to use that playstyle with the Arc subclass, that is going to be the best shotgun to do it. Maybe it's not as good as, a Time Lost Found Verdict or an Imperial Decree, but it's still going to get the job done. And if you have that role, if you've gotten lucky enough to get it, and like I said, you like playing Arc Warlock, Arc Hunter, Arc Titan, whatever, it can definitely put in a lot of pain for you. Moving on from all those aggressives though, we do have 2 more shotguns in the A tier, one of which being the Compass Rose. I know Compass Rose is a precision frame, which for some people might automatically assume that it's an S tier, but it doesn't have the same perk pool as a lot of the other ones. The perk pool is kind of mid. It's just really this high because, it is a precision frame. If I could put it lower, I probably would. It's tough to argue with any precision frame in the game right now because they have very high base range, they have good stats, they have the best pellet spread. They just naturally belong A tier or higher. Finally though, the last shotty in A tier is going to be the first in, last out. In my opinion, this is one of the worst slugs in the game, and it being one of the worst slugs and it being A tier, that should just show you how good slugs are right now. They are absolutely stupid. But this thing, it has opening shot. You have hipfire grip as well with opening shot, which is kind of a niche, unique combo. You have some decent perks, but what really holds us back from S tier is the fact that it has the lowest aim assist out of pretty much any slug in the game, and aim assist is a very, very important stat when you're going for, those close range one taps, and I can't with this S tier. You guys can debate a wall. Yes, I know the weapon model is good, but now we have things like Legato, which I'm just going to spoil it right now. That is going to be an S tier. Same weapon model. It's just all around better than first and last out. Speaking of S tier though, we have finally made it to the top dogs of the Crucible, the big boys, whatever. Actually, that sounded kind of crazy. That sounded zesty, I ain't gonna lie. But either way, we have finally made it to the top of the list. And here's where you guys are gonna see a lot of precision frame shotguns and a lot of slugs. So just bear with me on that. But there are a lot of shotguns that I thought belonged in S tier. The first of which being the new Dungeon Slug Shotgun Unvoiced. This is arguably the best shotgun in the game, period, pellet or slug. High handling, high range, really good aim assist, lone wolf, closing time. There is literally 0 flaws in this gun. Maybe there should be a separate S plus tier just for this thing because it is that good. But either way, it 100% belongs here. Another shotty that absolutely belongs here is the Deadlock. I think there's no questions about that. Yes, getting a good roll can be kind of annoying with RNG, especially if you're me getting trench barrel with more trench barrel. But if you have regular human RNG, I mean, even with a mid roll, this thing can really dunk on a lot of good shotguns in this game. On top of Deadlock though, another precision frame in the same slot that's really, really good is the Someday. I don't like this one as much as Deadlock, but I mean, it goes without saying, this thing is really, really good, and they both definitely belong in S tier. Matador 64 is another one that belongs in S tier. Some people have said it's fallen off a little bit because of, some other options in the game. I don't really agree with that though, because you do still have Harmony, which this is one of only 2 precisions in the game that gets that perk. And I think a lot of people sleep on it because people just don't use their primaries anymore. But if you're somebody who gets a lot of primary kills, Harmony will have you absolutely mapping with your shotgun. I'm not saying you should always use it over opening shot, but like in 6s, it is nice to have like a Harmony roll, and then maybe 3v3 you have opening shot. It definitely does have a lot of flexibility. Speaking of Harmony, the other precision with it is also an S tier. Fractithist, really, really good gun, very hard to get, but obviously being hard to get doesn't matter for this list. If you have the roll, you have the roll. If you don't, maybe you should go farm it. The gun is really, really good. Trust me, I know S tier is getting stacked with a lot of precision frames right now. There is one more though, that being the Scavenger's Fate. I'm gonna be real, if you don't have Scavenger's Fate in S tier, I don't know what you're doing. I really don't. This thing is absolutely amazing. I mean, you have Lone Wolf, closing time enhanced. You can use ballistics on this thing. There is nothing to dislike about this gun. If you're using an energy pellet, this should be the number one option, no questions asked. Moving on from all those precisions though, we are about to have a lot of slug shotguns. Other than Unvoiced, because I already said that one first, which I don't really know why I started out with that one. But the first slug here we have is Chaperone. Chaperone is Chaperone. I'm not even going to bother explaining why that's S tier. If you want to debate with me why it's not, I will be eating popcorn reading your comment. That's all I'm going to say. Heritage is another one that's S tier. Heritage doesn't really have the best perk pool for any slug in the game by any means. The base stats and aim assist is just so high that it's impossible for me to, not to put it S tier. For TZMO, I also have an S tier. This thing has some really, really good perks like opening shot, threat detector, and has good base aim assist. Very hard to not have this thing in S tier. We also have the Bone Chiller, which Bone Chiller actually has, stat-wise, outside of the aim assist, a little bit worse stats, but it is the only slug that gets firmly planted, which does work while you're sliding and gives you a huge accuracy bonus. So combining firmly planted with opening shot, you have a slug that is devious. And I've spent so many hours farming this thing. I've never gotten a roll with both firmly and opening that had good stats, like fluted, accurate, all of that, which definitely sucks, but if you do have that roll, it is very slept on and a very, very good slug at that. Blasphemer is also all the way up here in S tier because it has things like opening shot, threat detector, quick draw, hip fire grip. The gun is really good. High base aim assist. Very tough to argue with that being S tier. Next up, we have the Sojourner's Tale, another S tier slug shotgun. This one actually did recently get reissued. The reissue is a little bit worse because the last one, you had the option of running either moving target opening shot or threat opening. Now you basically have to run moving opening, which, I have to run moving opening, the best slug combo in the game. Who really cares? Well, I guess other than Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf is definitely better than moving target now, but moving is definitely not bad by any means. After Sojourners, though, we still have 3 more slugs, which sounds crazy because there's already been so many. One of which being the Ganora's Axe. Ganora's Axe is another one. Pretty good stats, very good weapon model. And it actually has ricochet rounds, which is the only slug in the game that gets that, which at first I was a little disappointed because I really like Assault Mag for the extra fire rate. But ricochet rounds does allow you to get some very goofy plays and bank shot people around corners with a slug, which nobody really expects. So for that reason, and the fact that, like I said, good stats, great perks, it has to be an S tier. Then we have the Legato. This is a no-brainer. I said it when I was talking about A tier. You have Lone Wolf, closing time. If you don't have this one in S tier, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Finally, though, the last one that we have in S tier is the Nessa's Ablation. I think I'm saying that right. This one has some great stats, very high base aim assist as well, because it is a raid shotgun, has opening shot. Unfortunately, in the left slot, you have to use something like Demo because there isn't really another great option. But either way, the stats and everything are so good. The fact that it even has one good perk, if it had 2, it might be a little bit too busted, but Either way, great shotgun overall. With that being said though, that is pretty much going to wrap it up for a shotgun tier list. I'll try to throw a tier maker screenshot up right here if I can find a good tier maker. All the ones I found didn't have like the most updated shotguns, but you know, if it's there, it's there. If not, I do apologize for that. But either way, if you guys did end up enjoying this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. It did take me a minute to make. If you did like it, make sure you leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts. It's been Gravelly. Peace.